Good morning. I decided I'd do another morning video. I like my morning voice. I'm more relaxed in the morning. It takes me a while to get going though, but when I wake up at 4 and my mind is focused, everything is nice. I thought this video would take a little while, but I just decided I'll just do it now. I was driving yesterday and I recorded a bunch and I listened to it again and didn't really sit well. I was a little bit too hyped, plus I was driving in a blizzard. I was going to a Black Prisoners Caucus event, and this is a day after seeing Black Panther. I saw Black Panther in the theater. I'm up in Seattle right now, so that was the Prisoners Caucus event was in Sheldon Penitentiary. So I'm in Black watching Black Panther in Seattle, West Seattle. Theater's packed, and I'm like the only brother there. And that is related to the thing about white fragility. It's not the multitude at all. People there, I would think many of them are land in two classifications. They're not what they've been socially engineered to be, by and large. And that's why the movie's over 400 million. They are still intellectually curious, and that's a good thing. But it is a movie that's created in the belly of the beast. They own most of it, so if white fragility manifests there as it did, then hey, I'll get to that too. But this video really isn't about the handful of people that were pretending to get beat up at the movie theater. That sort of thing. And this isn't about the even greater, I'd say beyond a handful. There's quite a few millions of trolls that, to some degree, even if it was just a click on a thumbs up, a like, or a share on social media, they wanted the movie to fail. And that's still a smaller segment of people. But that being the segment that it is, it's still strong enough to push policy in the United States. So I don't underestimate it. But I also don't empower it with my projections. I realize that 400 million in a long weekend, that's beastly. That's past all of those whitewash Egypt movies. And remember, I said I gave those movies credit for what they really gross, not just domestic. Those movies are still borderline profitable, but they're not hits. People are sick of that same tired ass Moses. Moses is tired. So sick of Moses. Cleopatra. But there will be Easter egg or minor spoilers. You might want to tune this off if you plan to go see it. I don't really I never do movie reviews, and this isn't a review. I don't talk about current events often. This is definitely a current event. The theme of my channel is that if nobody's saying it, I'm going to say it. Some things are best said by others, and I sit back and I listen, and sometimes it's entertaining, and sometimes I'm educated. And this is the age of information. You can learn a lot just off YouTube alone if you listen to the right people. So I didn't think the movie was really that deep. I didn't think Black Panther was that deep. I wish it would have gone a shed deeper with the Killmonger character, because at one point he lambasts the Wakandans for not doing a damn thing to help people who were under fire against colonialists, even though they mentioned colonialists with ire, but they didn't do anything. So Killmonger character, he gets into him. I wish he would have said nobody helped us except for Cuba, because that would have really been a ooh burn moment, not just on Wakanda, the rest of Africa, black people in general, but also America, this Western culture right there. That I wish he would have went there. But other than that, I thought the Killmonger character was a tad shallow. His plan was really what made him the antagonist, because his plan was dumb, but it was rushed. He was ready. He was basically trying to start a war. And once you understand that, you realize that even though I think he was shallow to just start an impromptu war, he was also he had planned the war. So it wasn't, even though it was too soon, it was going to be a strike. It was going to be a mean black power strike. And that's one of the reasons why you got all those memes pushed around that Killmonger was right. Hey. There was some depth to it, because there was something I missed, and actually one of my students noticed it. They told me, and I don't really have many students, like I said, most of my subscribers are trolls. I told the story about how I got all them trolls. That's basically how I had a video flagged down. That's why I have a video that's got like 60 views, and it's already been age restricted and banned in countries, and it's nothing. Like, there's nothing to it. The video where Anka's telling some white dude that it really is about reparations, and that after all the TAP does, we haven't got reparations yet. Japan has got reparations, both the Japanese Americans and the people who were bombed in World War II, and the nation of Japan. And in that sense, Japan becomes somewhat of a vassal state. That's something Sergeant Willie Pete mentioned, because he was talking about the debate with Tariq Nasheed and Jared Taylor. That debate is more of an example of white fragility than the handful of people who were pretending to get stabbed and shaked by militants, because that so much of that was to lie, to pretend that something that's right in front of us doesn't exist. And it became kind of a funny exercise, because Tariq Nasheed isn't really objective about white supremacy until he's super objective, and then it will basically go from just elaborately telling stuff, to where it's like not really, he's not giving any numbers, and people, a lot of times they respond to numbers, especially if you can present them practically. But in this case, and that it's hard to even call it a debate. It was basically more like Tariq getting grilled and spitting back pretty accurately for the most part. But he would jump in and just say, Japan was bombed, like, let's, how, and that's the thing. There's another thing Sergeant Willie Pete was really accurate about, was when he said that, hey, Asian Americans, they live on the coast, like me. I spend most of my time on the West Coast. I've lived on the East Coast too, but I spend most of my time on the coastline. I'm kind of country in a lot of ways. I like to chew tobacco, and I like Southern food. Like give me a rib and some greens and some what do you call it shit? Um, so, some peach cobbler. I can make peach cobbler. That's you can only make that a few times a year though. You end up with the sugars. So I avoid that. But living on the coast, it's hard for me to save money, but I make more money than the average American because the cost of living is so high. So, and these Asians that Jared Taylor is hyping, like, we can't, white supremacy can't exist when 3% of the population, these Asians who live in areas where the rent was so high that, and why does he talk like, Jared Taylor reminds me of like a black woman that is trying to sound educated, but doesn't know how to do it and still be herself, like isn't comfortable with herself. Like he sounds like a white dude who's around a bunch of white dudes for the first time. Like, I need to sound so proper, and because people will think I'm an idiot. Uh, it was so much deception in that. And then I started thinking, this was recently after that Nefertiti recreation that was brought to the Today Show. And then there's the Parkland shooter. There's just the weakness of white supremacy is out there right in front of our face. Though I don't think Tariq Nasheed really talked effectively about the strength and the objectivity of it. I mean, and then I could go on with examples. Another example is Jared Taylor's pseudoscience with the IQ tests, and then he brought up this whole thing how if you offer kids of different races marshmallows, the black kid will take one now instead of three later because of deferred gratitude or something like that. I'm like, dude, we got fucking diabetes, man. We're in cavities and stuff. I would have taken one goddamn marshmallow. I don't like marshmallows that much. What the hell am I going to do with three marshmallows but have a sticky ass pocket taking them home because I'm not going to eat them on the spot? You know what I mean? Like that type of we need to self-confirm our murderous history as being some kind of super intelligent, but they're running experiments like that robs people of their humanity to make decisions that isn't based on just three is better than one. I want one now. I can't wait. Stupid shit like that. And I'm listening to it. I'm like, because I was that kid that would have taken one, not because I need it right now. I didn't really, and I'm thinking, how can I take it home and roast it? Because I don't like plain marshmallows. They're very plain. They don't really taste good to me. But if I roast it over the fire, that might work. And maybe I am a dumb kid to some extent because I would be thinking, I don't want to carry that in my pocket. I want to carry them instead of asking like, hey, I'm going to need a plastic bag. I need to seal it up so it'll be fresh and all that. I'm not thinking like that. So maybe he's right. No, he can't be right because when I was a kid, they gave me an IQ test. And I put like this. Let me tell you this story about when I took an IQ test in school because it shows two of the things that are culturally wrong with the IQ test that I seriously doubt Jared Taylor is factoring. But I mean, he's kind of got a devilish persona, so it is how it is. But I wasn't that good in school. So I think I got tested to find out if I was lacking. They were testing my IQ to find out if something was wrong with me because my grades had been low and I was ahead, so I was left back. So I'd be in my right grade because I just wasn't doing well in class. So they have me take an IQ test, right? And I don't remember any questions except for there was a question where I had to search a backyard for something that I lost. It was a very strange question to me because I don't typically, I've taken IQ tests since then. I don't typically see those type of questions. So that's all I remembered. And except for I had just, when I took that test, I had just for the first time lived in a house with a backyard. And lived in a house, period. I had lived in apartments before that. So I didn't even know what it was to have a backyard until that year. So that's an example of how it's economically biased. Because a year before that, I'm living in the jungle apartments. So I take the test and I do well. They put me in the highly gifted class. And kid you not, the highly gifted class was a little bit easier. The teacher was strict as hell. He was known for being mean, and he was mean. Like he was the only teacher that I was ever intimidated by. He looked like he was that guy on the video. I forget his name. He was on that video with Joy Reid, the actor that was in the the Blueprint and the Black Powers Meta. He was also the villain in Blade 2. But anyhow, I'm kicking myself. My teacher looked like him. I'm like kind of a young man to have bright hair. And it just goes to show you I've taken IQ tests since then. I don't score a genius, but I score over 115 easy all the time. Matter of fact, I've also taken the Wonderlink. I think the Wonderlink is much harder than the IQ test because the Wonderlink, without studying, I would probably be one of the worst dudes. Now, if I do study it because it's sped and you know what questions to skip, I'd probably get like a 20 on it. But IQ, if I really studied the IQ test, I could get 125. I'd be fighting for 130. I don't know if I get 130, but I could get 125 if I really put effort into it. So that's one of the issues I have, is it's biased in that sense, but it's also so much about how hip you are to Western culture. If you look at the nations that do the best on it, it's the ones that are closer to the English language. It's true wherever you go. It's the ones that are closer to Western culture. And it's also the ones that understand what it's really trying to test. And that's one of the things with Black Panther. I want to jump back and make one more point about Black Panther. Is I didn't realize, and this is, I started saying this and I got distracted, but I didn't realize that the end of the movie is Black Power's meta until like my student, and like I said, I don't have many students. One of them told me, like, hey, they're building a temple of science in Bach, and that hit me. I'm like, Killmonger made them change. And the change occurred in the ancestral plane. When T'Challa was in the ancestral plane talking to his father. And what you see there is animism doing the whole psychology of it. That the traditional African religions, a lot of times they can be broken down into something that's very Freudian. I've heard people do that. I'm not as versed, but I understand that there's a lot of point-to-point relations with psychology. And from that psychology, that decision was made to empower Black people. And where do they start? Oakland. and I didn't recognize that they were building a temple of science. This is exactly what I talk about in Black Power's meta. I mean, if you look at Black Power's meta, Wakanda embodies the first two things. Actually, it embodies all of them, but the first two things it embodies especially. And this is something that a student also pointed out, that you see no inequalities within the genders. And that's something that if you study African culture, you don't really see that. The thing that you will see that'll jump out at you is genital mutilation, female circumcision, whatever you want to call it. That's there. There is no MGTOW. There's no feminism. There's no men's rights activists. I'm yet to see any type of gender inequality when I study African cultures. Like, if anything, women are elevated to the point where they were elevated as being mother goddesses. You don't see that. And you also do not see men that are going through the many things that they go through and often deny. I once heard an anti-feminist female, I think it was Allison Tennyson, not sure how to pronounce her name. She said that a lot of men are comfortable with the lie of feminism, or the flattering lie of feminism, that you are large and in charge, you are all powerful, that you are dominant, that your values run everything, this is patriarchy, blah, 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 blah. They're comfortable in that. And I see the same with black people, that they're comfortable with the prosperity gospel. They're comfortable with their own accountability, and even when it's obsessive. And that's something I ran into when I was at the Prisoners Caucus. I wish I had said that, because I had talked to some brothers who are locked down to a point where I'm looking at 11 of them and they're looking at 200 years. And I'm telling them that y'all are being held accountable. And really, I shouldn't even have said that, because that's affront to the word accountable. They're being punished severely, punished in excess a lot of times. But their nation isn't, for all of the things that it's done that might not be glamorous enough for a movie. But I just wanted to make that point about Black Panther, and I think I'm off that topic. It wasn't, to me, a very deep movie. It was just good. It was just well done. Coogler, I watched his breakdown of that fight scene. Ryan Coogler. I'm not even sure if that's how to pronounce his name. Let me look that up. Because you can tell something about him. Yeah, Ryan Coogler. Yeah, look up Black Panther's director breaks down a fight scene. And listen to him break down this scene, and one thing will jump out. He's free and comfortable with himself. Because he's a little bit hood, but he's in a lot of ways when I said, how Jared Taylor reminds me of a black woman who's trying to sound educated. He reminds me of when black people don't need to sound like that. They just, okay, I'm just going to be myself. Whatever. He is completely himself. And I think that is the main reason why Black Panther wasn't oh man, this movie could have really been done shitty. That's the thing I liked most about it, is it was an example of, since we're just coming out of the Winter Olympics, a high difficulty routine. Ron Perlman, just remembered his name. I didn't look it up. Ron Perlman is what my teacher looked like. He looked like a meaner Ron Perlman. But it was high difficulty. I thought the only thing that I didn't really like about it, where if I was a critic, I would have like, man, your whole 0 to 60 war, yeah, quick ass Civil War. I think it could have had a little bit more build up and foreshadowing to show just how strong the tension is. But it was quelled. It didn't last too long. So that's really about it with Black Panther. With Right Fragility, it's tied to, there's two weaknesses of white supremacy, but first we need to understand the objective reality of it, regardless of whatever 3% of Asians, and this is including East Asians and West Asians, so we're including Arabians, we're including Indians, we're including Chinese, Singapore, Japanese, Thailand. All Asians are like 3% of the population of America, and they're almost all either self-employed, a lot of times in black neighborhoods because they get loans for that, or they're working for wealthy white people. White supremacy has two weaknesses, and Tariq Nasheed does not mention one of them, except for, I've heard him mention it once. It was a while ago. It's very hierarchical. So a lot of what you hear from Jared Taylor, beyond the pseudoscience, and then how the guy's talking about 1 out of 15 ancient Egyptian ancestry tests or samples, talking about 1 out of 15 samples, or talking about how European Jews aren't white, even though they're more related to Europeans than anybody else, except for their family Jews, those type of Jews, not other type of Jews. You can disregard all of that. So you can drop all of that, push that to the side, and you still have some things in that debate that I'm seeing that are very deceptive, because that seemed to be the thing he was most right about, was, yeah, Asian men are making more money, even though they're living in areas where standard of living is much higher. But they are working for white people. They are empowering the elite. It is hierarchical, and even though it's hierarchical, so many of people that are not doing very well, like I'm plenty of white people that are passed by that are holding signs for money, they aren't doing well. And where I'm at most of the time, they're not the group that's living vicariously through the wealthy, but there's always been enough that do, and it's always affected policy. So whether white supremacy is spreading money, populace based on whatever, based on pigment genes, or if the money is more concentrated at the top, it does not change policy. Black people have never gotten reparations, because if it was about that, we would have said a long time ago, well, they have artificially induced poverty, and we got as Tariq Nasheed says, we got the receipts. So there's never been anything, and that's by design. That's the media. Otherwise, if it was as popular as common sense would dictate, and affordability and practicality, and I would say even just good government. When you look at the way we spend money on sabotage, the panaceas, I always bring that up. We spend so much on sabotage and panaceas for African Americans. Straight up reparations, move out of their way, let's blow up these neighborhoods as tourist attractions. That would be, over the course of however many years, that would have been far more effective. Because it's not for a lack of work, although I do think, and this is so ironic, I see an almost laziness because black people realize just how much work it is. Other people don't. So when I start talking reparations, you have people who will react completely different. Black people know, man, that you might as well slay the dragon. You know, they know it's difficult. They know it's a beast. Well, white people think you just want to sit up and get a check. No. I'm the type of person that'll wake up at 4 a.m. and take no dose. I'm up early right now. You know, that's why I'm not talking loud. People are trying to sleep. Well, people is basically it's either going to be my kids or my girlfriend. So, my fiance. And that's it. But that's the major weakness, is it's hierarchical. And that weakness is tied to its second weakness. The second weakness is so much of it is based on deception. That you would, like that whole thing with Asian men is such an example. But the thing is they're not on code when it comes to deception. Watch the trailer for Race War, the second trailer, and compare Jared Taylor to Richard Spencer. That's it. Like there's a segment of white extremist ideologists or whatever who would like to be really upfront about how they do things. And they would like to, you know, like Richard Spencer said, yeah, white privilege exists and it needs to be expanded. It needs to be further realized. I'm like, well, if that's the case, you probably should have voted for Hillary Clinton, because I think anybody at this point is more of a populist than Trump, at least when it comes to dollars and cents. When it comes to talk, sure. When it comes to rhetoric, Hillary Clinton is liberal elite, billionaire, blah, 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 witch woman, and Trump is a man of the people. But when it comes to dollars and cents, this is the hierarchical standard that becomes a weakness, but only when it's brought to the truth. And that's why you have so much deception. I have seen somebody who was arguing, and this was actually what led up to this, is when I said one of my students, they were debating about on Quora, and I might include this debate. And you could see how crazy the whitewashing of ancient Egypt is. You literally have someone who is arguing about, it started off with the Abu Sir test, and then they started picture spamming, and a student, I think, I won't say their name, they ran the conversation off of genetics, because they have more examples with genetic tests. And then when it went to picture spam, it was over. I wonder how anyone could be that passionate about that argument when the pictures of the art that they created speak the way it does. And the answer lies in fragility. share my cognitive dissonance. That is a delusional statement by someone who needs reassurance so their reality doesn't fall apart. Share my cognitive... It's basically an argument so someone will share your cognitive dissonance when the truth is staring right in front of my face. And it's funny, like, I may include this because they mention, all right, you have a DNA test from 2017. Well, what about this one from 1985, 1992, and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, you're paying attention. You are paying attention. That made my day. But we need others like that because we really need to challenge Wikipedia. What's going on Wikipedia is bullshit. But it is exposed in graphic detail. Literally graphic detail. It is exposed. Video 3, the truth about ancient Egyptian genetics and why I edited Wikipedia. Video number 3. That is banging. And follow the mission within. Join Wikipedia. Join, but educate yourself on how it works first. Because it's a tough one. But it's rewarding. We need more teachers. And there's a lot of teachers out there on YouTube. So I encourage you, join Wikipedia. That's really it. See, the deception combined with the fact that it's not hierarchical, when that starts to make white people realize that white supremacy is not good for them, that it leads to trying to forgive psychosis based on, and you talk about examples. Like I said, I could go on for examples, but forgive the psychosis or just the grim evil of a school shooting with a theory of a false flag that really has no motive. Like, how are you going to take someone who's trained as a white supremacist, who's already drunk off that shit, and then you're going to make a Manchurian candidate out of them? You're going to brainwash them? How? Think about that for a minute, because that is the alt argument. And that, I even saw that from Coons. Asking White Daddy, is this a false flag, White Daddy? Well, I don't want to believe that you would do something so horrible to your own children. So that's the new thing. That's what I mean, how black conservatives, you really have to filter through them to find the ones that are black first. And it's a lot like the analogy of finding a needle in a haystack. But actually, I would say it's more like finding diamonds. They're more prevalent than needles and haystacks, but damn, you're going to have to get dirty, sort through them. And when you find them, they are valuable because we need some infiltration among the ideologues. Black first infiltration among the Republican Party. That's how you get reparations. That's part of how to do it. So I love seeing black first Republicans, but man, it's more common for me to find black people trying to make up elaborate false flag stories to cover for this just violence, unnecessary school shooting violence. I mean, like it's to the point where it's not a comfortable form of infamy. I mean, I don't get that. But I don't get it. It's really just another layer. And this is the same dude within hours of the school shooting, when this picture was released, they were showing pictures of some guy that looks like him saying he's a communist. They were talking about his last name. This guy's got green eyes and a few freckles, but he's a Latino. Okay? That's white fragility. That's a deception. And when that deception meets the fact that it's not beneficial, that it's so hierarchical, you know, like it's beneficial to white people compared to other people, with the exception of, you know, okay, we got some model minorities who know how to code a language that we never heard of. With that exception, or, you know, whatever people who are doing well or whatever, it's beneficial compared to other people with a handful of exceptions, but it's not beneficial compared to other wealthy white people. And when they start to realize that cracks the deception, and that's it. It will have no financial backing. But the thing is, it already has so much, and it has so much control over the media, that even when it cracks and it falls back, it's got so much in the bank. And the only way to compete with that is to generate wealth yourself. And I've outlined how to do it in Black Power's Meta. So watch that video. Enjoy. 42 is out. And like I said, if nobody's saying it, I'm going to say it. I'm going to jump in last.